if a consumer spends $80 for a game, they now feel like everything that comes with that extra content should already be included in that $80 price tag. But if you give them Fortnite, which is free, they'll probably spend two, three times that amount because they got the base product for free. And so right now, like single player games are very expensive and the studios only get that one time purchase. So I think AI will be able to help build those experiences out cheaper and faster.
Colin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thinking about cap tables.
I'm excited to talk about cap tables. We've got a new sponsor, new partner for the Wannabe Angels podcast, and that is Carta. Is that the reason why you're thinking about cap tables or just totally random?
Deal related, but it
Okay.
is top of mind. They do cap tables.
Yeah,
That's their
I
biz.
I think usually it's a good email actually when I get it from Carta. It's saying, you've got more options that have vested, or, I feel like most of the emails I get from, the automated ones from Carta are good. And obviously they're a huge name in the venture space. So really excited to partner with them.
Yeah, I have some fond memories of when you vest your options. They have a confetti screen,
Ah, yeah, they do.
and that is delightful, and
Okay,
feels
so I
great.
think, we've been talking about Carta about bringing a few of their different product managers or people to touch on different topics like SPVs and some of the intricacies of investing. But maybe we could find the product manager who built that confetti screen. That might be the most important person at all of Carta. What do you think?
Get that person a raise. That's what I think.
Okay. All right. Well, so that's our first bit of product feedback for the team at Carta. And yes, we are really excited to be partnering with Carta for the next couple months. And, they'll be sponsoring each episode. And so we'll be mentioning at the top of each show, but we're also going to have on a few folks from the team. I know you've done some really cool stuff with some of their data, the data room and the insights. We'll talk about their SPV products. And, obviously I'm really excited for this because they're such a big name in the venture space and they've got so many different products and areas that, just beyond like the cap table management and things like that. So excited to dig in.
Likewise.
All
I'm
right.
ready.
Well, before we start chatting with Bruce, I'm going to talk a little bit about Carta's SPV product. So, if you're looking for a simple and highly professionalized solution to form and administrate an SPV, then there's a set of tools out there that we think is worth taking a look at. And it's built by our partners for today's episode over at Carta. So, whether you're looking to launch your first fund or just start with a straight, simple SPV, Carta's built a holistic suite of solutions that's designed from the ground up to help you move fast, reduce risk, and provide unprecedented transparency to your LPs and other key stakeholders, all from an established brand that we all know and trust in the venture world. So, if you want to learn a bit more about Carta's SPV formation and administration tools, you can check them out at carta.com or just run a simple search for Carta SPV. Bruce Hamilton is the founder and general partner of Everybody Ventures. He's passionate about using his entrepreneurial experience, business development, marketing, and creative background to develop brands and help them scale. Bruce previously served as co-founder, general partner of Mech Ventures, a $10 million early stage venture fund investing in companies building the future of pop culture. He's also a serial entrepreneur that has built and scaled several companies, leading to one acquisition. Bruce, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing? Thank you for having me, by the way.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to chat. We've got the whole gang together. Colin took a little break from his summer VC travels and is joining us. And I think this, again, I'm trying to encourage people to watch our interviews on YouTube because you've got an amazing shoe wall behind you, which is just like the perfect fit for, what we're going to talk about with your investment focus with pop culture and other things like that.
Oh, thank you. It's it's been years in the making. So now I have a hard rule, one in, one out, because if I don't have that rule, I'm just gonna have like a whole room just full of sneakers.
Oh, really? So
How
you'd
many
get rid of
shoes?
a pair of shoes?
How many
Many do you
shoes? I
have?
think I'm
Yeah.
close to 200.
Wow. Well, the cool thing about shoes is that your feet never get bigger, right? So you would think that, or smaller, hopefully, right? So you kind of like never outgrow them. Like some of my suits I no longer fit into, but it might be a decent investment category, huh?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely there's some shoes that go for a lot of money, actually. I think I have a pair behind me now. I think the Travis Scott highs. I think they go for about 4,000 on
Wow.
StockX currently.
Awesome. Well, seems like that might be a future podcast all about your sneaker collection and your investment strategy there. But for now, we're going to be talking about Everybody Ventures. So I want to kind of do a few get to know you questions about the fund and just kind of dial in. So if you don't mind, so if you're ready, we'll dive in. So what's the size of your fund and how many investments have you made so far out of your fund?
Well, our fund one was about 5 million. Let's say we made about 6 or 7 investments out of that. And then we recently launched our fund two, which is introducing our new investment vehicle, which is basically our social investing platform. So we've basically created a vehicle that allows investors, accredited and non-accredited,
Hmm.
to become LPs in the fund at a minimum of 3K. So for
Oh,
this
wow.
fund two, we're doing a very small fundraise between 500K and 1 million. And the reason why we're doing that, just kind of testing out this new
Mhm.
component where every LP gets to vote on potential investments.
Got it. Interesting. So, yeah, this is definitely one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on to dig into this unique structure. Have you made any investments from this new fund yet this year?
No, we literally just launched this new fund 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
So
cool.
we're going to start deploying out capital from that fund towards the end of Q3.
Awesome. And what do you plan for your average check size to be?
Between 25 to 50K.
Got it. And what type of startups do you look for, and what stage are you sort of considering for this fund?
I mean, we look at consumer. We're hyper focused on consumer, and I guess I'll explain why we use that angle of pop culture, and that kind of plays into why we're super focused on consumer. I feel like pop culture is the thing that connects people of all walks of life, and I know in my space, a lot of VCs and investors are terrified of consumer. But I think the reason why they're terrified of consumer is because they don't understand consumer habits and consumer behavior. So I think if you have a firm grasp of pop culture, then you can really kind of predict those things and kind of invest ahead of what's already trending. If you're investing in what's trending right now, by the time they get the product out, it's a passing fad. No one's really looking at it anymore. So you really need to understand what people want, what they need. And for me, pop culture is not just media and entertainment. It's how we talk to each other, how we connect, what we trust, how we talk to each other, and there's all these things that just move us together as a society.
Very cool.
What?
So, definitely a helpful background. Colin, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was so when I personally love consumer too. All the companies I've done have been consumer businesses, and they're just fun because I think, like you said, you get to harness the zeitgeist of the time and do something really, I don't know, just that people want, right? They want to use disposable income to do, right? I think that's fun to me.
You also get to
Um,
use them. You get to tell your friends about them, right? If it's like
yeah,
B2B SaaS, who are you going to tell about that?
no one.
All right.
I guess I'm interested, like I think consumer can be really hard at early stages, like to really identify like what is traction, like especially at idea stage. And I'm kind of intrigued to know one where you guys invest given your check sizes, but also like kind of what do you watch for at like the early stages of consumer, like as a what are the green shoots that give you confidence that this could be the next thing?
Yeah, it's actually a great question. So for Fund One, we're going from pre-seed to Series A, and for Fund Two, we're only doing pre-seed and seed because the check size is too small to really go into later rounds. Obviously, if you're doing early stage, there's not a whole lot of traction to go off of, and so I like to see one is just something that people are going to use. Is it you're not jumping on like the hottest trend? Like I remember back in what was it 2018, everybody was all heavy on like micro mobility, so it was like every electric scooter company was getting funding, and we see how well that worked out for everybody.
Ouch.
But
Painful.
Ooh, shots fired for Harry.
Oh, my 20,000 advisor shares in Bird were once looking pretty good. Thanks, Bruce, for bringing that up.
I didn't know that. I'm so sorry.
R.I.P.
But
Keep
no,
going.
it's so I like to see, do you have an understanding of the market that you're building in? Like for example, because we get a lot of music tech pitches because I from my background in music. And so one of the kind of the red flags for me is this your first time delving into the music industry? Like, are you building for a company that you have no experience in that industry? And so,
Mm,
when I bring up music, because I get a lot of music pitches, and so you'll see someone who's building a music startup but have no experience in music, And so what I've found, the first thing that a lot of founders who've never worked in music, when they're trying to build something music, first thing they say is, we didn't realize navigating the music industry would be so difficult because it operates very different than other places. And it's a very nuanced and industry driven industry. So if you don't have those relationships built in, it would be it's very hard to get people to answer your emails or answer your phone calls. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I like to see that you have some sort of experience in that industry.
How do you balance that with the kind of other story, right? Like I invested in this company where the founder, it was like a grocery. It helps small to medium grocers get online. And the founder, his parents had a grocery store in New York. So it was like that story sounded great on paper and, I think is going well. But like on the other end of the spectrum, right? Like with Uber, for example, you have a founder who didn't know anything about taxi or transportation, right? Like who not many people grow up in that. And it kind of, I feel like sometimes it takes, the vision to be like, because I'm not in that industry, people are like, oh no, it's never work that way. And I'm like, well, why not? So how do you sort of balance the two, or do you think it's kind of a case by case basis?
I think it's definitely a case by case basis because sometimes you need someone who has no experience in that
Yeah.
industry to come in and completely disrupt things.
Yeah.
And that's typically how disruption happens is when someone comes in and says, hey, the way you guys operate is insane. There's a far
Hmm.
better way to do this, and I'm going to build that. So it's definitely a case by case. And I think it just comes down to that founder and how well you gel with the founder and this, do you believe in their vision? Because really, most of what you're going off of in pre-seed is, do you believe in this vision? Do you believe in this team that can execute this plan?
Yeah, the question around founders with like good founder market fit, so to speak, I think is like this weird, it's like I've have mixed feelings about it. One, you would say like, hey, someone has experience, they may understand process in those industries and be able to like do it differently or harness that to do, I know a problem and exploit that. Right. Or like what I see more often is that they're usually the best salesperson in that category. And they're like, well, if I could just aggregate everybody or do it this way, then it'll be successful. And kind of one of the pitfalls I see there is that they actually have really very little product experience and like development experience and really can make this is specific more in the marketplace space is like I see a lot of B2B marketplaces where someone's a great salesperson in that category and able to aggregate a lot of like supply, demand, and customers and make some transactions. But realistically, what they're not the best at is crossing the chasm into like this product led marketplace where people are coming on their own and doing things. So I don't know. I always like I'm torn on that personally. Like, is it a good thing or a bad thing to be not good or bad, but is it a plus or a minus to the outcome?
Yeah, it's really tough to, kind of predict that thing. It's really just coming down to that founder, and that's what it's all comes down to in pre-seed and seed. Obviously, there's other factors, but really it comes down to that team. And another thing for us is like we like to come in, we don't come in pre-product. So we like to see a product that's either like in the market or almost ready to
Hmm.
go out to market.
So, Bruce, your website says for Everybody Ventures, the business of pop culture, consumer, and technology. I think most people know consumer technology, kind of teased that definition and why pop culture is so important to you. Let's talk about it as a investment category, though, right now. What's hot? What are you excited about in kind of the pop culture space, or really, kind of more broadly, what you're looking at from an investment perspective these days?
I would say at the top of my list right now is gaming. Obviously, as you guys know, the gaming is a massive space, and I still think it's still in its infancy stages. So that space is only going to get bigger. I just read yesterday that Roblox is partnering with a studio where they're actually selling tickets to watch Beetlejuice on Roblox.
Well,
Yeah, and so yeah, there's a massive space there, and I think I was reading something very recently where Stem, which is a streaming platform for games, I think there's over, I think it was close to like $1 billion of people who have bought games that they haven't even played yet. They haven't even opened the game yet.
wow. So when you say gaming, is this just sort of traditional, studios or people or companies building games and then kids to adults going out and playing them, buying things, or is there a media component? What do you think of the gaming category these days? Because honestly, I don't know much about gaming. I think the last game I played was StarCraft in sixth grade, which I love, but it's been a while.
Oh wow, that's vintage right there. Oh no, I think the entire industry as a whole, whether it's traditional studios or gaming peripherals or people building tools that support gaming, I think there's a whole massive space right there. And I'm a really big gamer
Hmm,
myself, so I'm really big on Helldivers 2 right now. That game
hmm.
has me addicted. And I think it's one of the best multiplayer games on the market. They've done such a great job building a community. Yeah, it's just really great. But then there's also a new trend of free to play games where you're actually seeing that they are making a lot of the game studios a lot of money because people end up there's a psychology around
Hmm.
free to play, right? Or freemium in general, and this goes across every industry, where the psychology is if you give them the base product for free, they actually feel a little obligated to spend more on the game. And so when they actually spend money on the game, they actually spend more than what they would have paid for the base game itself. So right now, say a brand new game is $80.
Interesting.
If a consumer spends $80 for a game, they now feel like everything that comes with that extra content should already be included in that $80 price tag. But if you give them Fortnite, which is free, they'll probably spend two, three times that amount because they got the base product for free. And so they're like, oh, I don't mind spending 10 here, 10 there, 50 here, 50 there.
Do you think AI will have a big impact on gaming? I've seen a couple people talking about, that AI could maybe help the development, these elaborate multi-hundred million dollars that goes into developing. And now it's like AI, generate a scene or, kind of more of the customization of a game, through AI. What do you think about its impact on gaming?
I think AI is going to have a massive impact in gaming, especially when it comes to development. I think we're like right now, like single player games are very expensive, and the studios only get that one time purchase of that. And so studios ideally want to scale back from those single player experiences because they cost so much money.
Hmm.
So I think AI will be able to help build those experiences out cheaper and faster. So I think, yeah, AI is definitely going to be a massive component to that. And then also, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but SAG AFTRA is actually on strike against the gaming industry for potentially. I don't think they've come to terms on the use of AI when it comes to voiceover work,
Hmm.
and so
Interesting.
they're on strike until they come to terms on that.
Gotcha. Well, let's pivot a little bit because the other reason that I wanted to have you on was because of the fund structure that you are employing. So, what's the technical term for your fund? Is it one of the 506Cs or what's the designation? Maybe you could kind of explain it in more technical terms.
Technically and legally, I guess we would say we're structured as more of an investment club, and so that's how we're able to bring in the investors, accredited and non-accredited. But once we were doing our research and looking, and I'm sure you guys know, like the LP market is brutal right now because there haven't been a lot of liquidation events, so there's not a lot of liquid capital that can go to funds right now. And so there was a study that went out a couple of weeks ago that showed that A16Z got 80% of the LP funding in Q1 this year. And so what you're seeing is a lot of LPs are going to more
80% in one
well-known
quarter?
funds. Yeah, but that tells you what the market is. A lot of LPs, you know, they're going to safer route. They're going to more
Hmm.
well-known firms, and so newer funds are just having a hard time fundraising. I've talked to a lot of funds, and they're having, you know, relatively difficult times fundraising. And then we're just doing the research, not only the LP market, but then to typically invest in the fund, you need to be an accredited investor, which means, according to the SEC, you either have $1 million in net worth or you make an annual salary of at least 200,000. If it's a joint couple, then it's 300,000. Less than 20% of the United States qualifies for that category,
Hmm.
but over 150 Americans own stock. So there's like this weird disparity there where people want to invest and they're looking for new investment opportunities, but they're blocked out from venture
Yeah.
capital. As we know, that's where a very highly lucrative opportunity, but it's also high risk. So we
Yeah.
wanted to figure out a way to, and it's something I've been working on for 3 years now. I've been trying to figure out, and it was a passion of mine. I finally figured out how to lower that barrier and to bring in LPs who are already doing angel investing, but they can't invest in a VC fund. And so, for a lot of LPs we've talked to, they're like, this is exactly what we've been looking for, because for them, so they do angel investing in startups, but you can go all in on one startup. And if that startup crashes, your whole investment's gone, where you can put that into a fund and say, for example, one startup crashes, you have another 29 still ready to go. So you're just diversifying your investment. So we wanted to just present that opportunity and just kind of come at venture capital from a different angle.
Yeah. I think we had one other guest, Harry, that does this, Gail. They kind of have more of a crowdfunding model, but I guess like I don't know. I'm not an expert on it, but they do that. They have like
That's why we brought
similarly.
on Bruce. He's the expert.
Yeah. But they have more, I guess, yeah, like you said, it's more like an investment club. They bring a deal, people decide if they want to invest, and it's kind of more of a like a, I don't know if it's an SPV or exactly how it happens, but maybe you can talk us through how each investment works, if it's like a traditional fund or if it's a deal by deal.
Yeah. But
Because I know nothing.
it operates very similar to a fund. So everyone's commitment is being pooled.
Hmm.
So, for, some of those SPVs or like angel groups where they're selecting deal by deal, and then those investors then all pool money for that particular deal. Everything is basically being pooled as a traditional LP fund. I mean, a
Hmm.
traditional venture capital fund. And then we, as the investment team, we're looking at startups, and any promising startups will put a deal memo into our platform. Say, hey, this is something that we really believe in. What do you guys all think? You can either manually vote, and our platform actually allows people to auto vote yes, and so you can kind of be an LP that says, here's my check. I
Oh,
trust you
nice.
guys. Go for it. Or if you want to be hands on, you can manually vote. But we've seen right now 95% are just selecting auto vote yes and just say, we trust you
Hmm.
guys to make that investment. And so then they vote, and then majority vote wins, and then the capital will go out to that particular startup. So it's everyone's capital is still going to the same place. So it's not a deal by deal. It operates
Got
very
it.
much like a VC fund.
I like this model a lot more than one where it's kind of deal by deal SPV or sort of a quasi fund where you kind of have to convince everyone to invest. It's like, hey, where you might do 25 investments over the life cycle. It's like you now have to make 25 times. You have to convince people to give you money. That seems like a nightmare. So I sort of like this idea. It's still similar to in a fund. It's hard to get LPs, but you've kind of lowered that barrier financially, right? So you said $3,000 minimum LP commitment, right? Which is very cool, very reasonable. Most funds, are 250K minimum, but if you're kind of can pitch that you've got some value add, you can get 25, 15, 10, 5 if you're valuable enough to them as an LP. But then you kind of pool all of that money and then still give them a little optionality on each deal, right? What was the thinking behind giving them that voting option? Because it sounds like everyone's kind of just voting yes anyway. So,
Well, the theory behind this whole thing is I think LPs should have some broader idea of what's being invested in, and so they can kind of see it up front instead of waiting for, you know, the LP update that comes once a quarter, and then you're like, oh, these are all the investments I have. You can see it in real time and really invest it, and then it also I think motivates LPs to then bring in deal flow that they think would be very interesting. That I think
mm,
that the rest of the group will bring into. And really, the main thing behind it is because we're hyper focused on consumer, every LP now becomes a brand ambassador for these startups. And so they're going to their immediate network, their friends and family, and they're telling everyone, hey, go buy this product because I'm invested in it. And I think that's the key of lowering that barrier to entry is now we're going to have a lot of LPs cheerleading these startups, but still keeping it at a minimum where there is some sophistication in that investor. So you're not having an LP putting in their very last dollar. I still think at that 3,000 mark, there's some sophistication where your money's locked up for 5 to 10 years, and you could potentially lose this investment.
yeah, I think there's definitely, you almost don't want to make it too easy, right? If anyone and everyone can invest in it, like the way they talk about the product might actually be off-putting. Sometimes when people are pitching I've got a media business, right? So we cover a lot of new startups. And if like I'm getting spammed left and right and people are like, oh, come to this webinar, oh, use my referral code. It almost like turns you off of a product, right? Like they're invested in the success of the company, but they just are trying to like sign people up and make money. And I'm like, that's my first impression of the company. It's not ideal, right? Versus sort of what you're saying. So how are you finding LPs? How are you marketing? How are you attracting them? What have you had success with so far?
So right now, our fund two is kind of a private club. So really, it's coming from our network or our immediate network, whether it's
Hmm.
referred from existing LPs or people in our network that say, "Hey, so and so would be a really good LP for this." So we're keeping it private for this particular fund, and then we were going to take the learnings from the voting component. That's what I really want to learn the most on is the voting component, and then go public with this and our fund three, which would be Q1 2025. So with this, we plan to do a fund every year at the top of the year, or we haven't figured out the full cycle yet, but an annual fund every year.
Got it. Very cool. Colin, anything you want to ask before we wrap?
No, I mean, so it's essentially like, or yeah, yes, I do have some to ask Harry. It's essentially like kind of a rolling yearly fund in some basic sense. Is it a,
Essentially, yeah, it's not like a standard rolling fund.
yeah,
We'll just launch new funds every year for LPs to invest into.
Yeah. It's cool to hear about all the different models of funds and, kind of like it sounds like a little bit like tailoring towards your investment thesis, towards your network, towards your experience, right? And it's kind of cool. I know Colin and I have enjoyed presenting all these different models because it's really like there's so many different options and, it's kind of about triangulating all these different inputs and then figuring out what's the best. So do you have any advice for anyone that's kind of going down this path and maybe looking for like a more non-traditional fund setup?
I think just find what works for you. For me, we were looking at the fund market and it was not the fund market, but the LP market. And I was like, this is just a lot of hassle. And I'm very much operating on work smarter, not harder. So
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, this allows us to raise funds quickly, bring in people that already understand the thesis, and go from there. So yeah, I think you just have to figure out what works for you. This could work for one party, and then doing a syndicate group could work for another, or just doing a traditional VC fund may work for another. So yeah, it's really just figuring out what works best for you.
Awesome.
I guess,
Well, go for it, Colin.
no, I guess like one question I have on that, like having and being in the middle of raising a fund, Harry is like, he's like very much like you, though, the work smarter, not harder. And he probably
One LP.
characterizes me as the works really hard, not
You're
very
the
smart.
workhorse.
And, I think for me, I think the thing I keep realizing, like in a traditional fund setup, because, I have to get accredited investors in my fund, is there is a certain check size where it just doesn't make sense. But even if I didn't have to get accredited investors, like in just check size, like has that changed how you do your marketing to get those people? Like because like in some sense, like even just the hand holding to convince them and meet with them that they should invest in your fund. Like how do you get it so you can get someone with like a 3K commitment so that you're not getting on the phone with them and giving them a presentation every time?
It actually makes it significantly easier because by the time they reach out to you, they already understand what is happening. And so maybe they might want to do a quick high level overview, but you don't really have to sell them. And so one of the biggest learnings I took from my very first venture fund was spend more time finding believers than convincing skeptics. And so
Mm.
having this new fund structure naturally just brings in people that already would fit this, that understand what we're looking for, and that just fit this. And so there's not there from my experience so far, there hasn't really been a lot of selling because every LP already gets it.
Nice. Awesome. We're going to put that quote on a t-shirt, and I think that's a good ending point. Bruce, if folks want to find out more about yourself or your fund, we'll leave a link in the show notes to everybody.ventures. Anything else, anywhere else they should go, or anything else you want to mention?
No, not right now. If you have any questions, find me on LinkedIn or reach out to us through Everybody Ventures.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming on, Bruce. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for having me.